Maria, you're not going to believe this post. I am literally loving this new AI filter that turns your cat into a 17th century oil painting. I'm loving it so much, I've been staring at it for 20 minutes.
Hugo, while I appreciate the artistic transformation of felines, I must point out a glaring syntactical inconsistency in your enthusiasm.
Here we go. What's the damage, Maria?
You said, I am loving this filter. Technically speaking, love is a stative verb. Consequently, it should not be used in the progressive or ing form. You love the filter. You are not loving it.
Tell that to the billions of people who eat at a certain golden-arched fast food chain, Maria. Their whole brand is, I'm loving it. In the real world, if I say, I love it, I sound like a robot from 1995. If I say, I'm loving it, I sound like I'm actually having a good time right now.
And that, Hugo, is exactly why our community feels so stuck. They are caught between the ironclad rules of the textbook and the fluid, often rebellious reality of modern English.
And that's what we're diving into today. Welcome back to Mrs. English Interactive. I'm Hugo, your guide to how people actually talk.
And I am Maria. I provide the structure and precision you need to ensure your English is not only natural, but fundamentally sound.
Today, we're tackling the stuck intermediate problem, that plateau where you know the rules, but you still feel like you're glitching when you try to use them in the wild. And we're starting with the verbs that aren't allowed to move.
Precisely. We are discussing stative versus dynamic verbs, or, as I prefer to call it, the science of state versus action. Before we fix the grammar, we must address the psychology. Many of you listening have reached a B1 or B2 level. You can survive a meeting, you can order a coffee, yet you feel robotic. This is often due to grammar anxiety, the fear that using the wrong tense will expose you as an outsider.
It's like you're trying to play a video game, but you're still using the tutorial controls. You're overthinking every move. You know the textbook says one thing, but your ears hear native speakers saying the exact opposite. It's confusing.
The cognitive challenge at this level is significant. To move from B1 to B2 requires nearly 600 hours of instructional time, but more importantly, it requires unlearning. You must stop imitating the simplified rules you learned as a beginner and start embracing the nuance.
Exactly. Don't overthink it. Think of your English like a software update. You've got the base code. That's Maria's department. Now we're adding the user experience. That's mine.
Let us look at the why. In English, we categorize verbs into two groups. The first is dynamic verbs. These are actions: to run, to eat, to jump. These verbs are moving.
Basically, action verbs. If you can see someone doing it in a movie, it's an action verb. You can see me eating a burger, right? So, I am eating. Simple.
However, the second group is stative verbs. These describe a state, a condition, or a permanent quality: thoughts, emotions, possession, and senses. Know, believe, belong, smell. These are frozen verbs. Technically, they do not have a beginning or an end, so they do not take the ing form.
Here's the Hugo translation. State verbs are like a still photo. Action verbs are like a video. You don't put a loading bar on a photo, right? It just is. So you don't say, I am knowing the answer. That sounds like your brain is still downloading the info. You just know it.
A helpful analogy, Hugo. But here is where the textbooks often lie, or at least where they stop telling the full story. As we see in the 2026 linguistic landscape, the line between photo and video is blurring.
Now we're getting to the good stuff, the I'm loving it revolution. Maria, explain why the dictionary is currently screaming into a pillow.
It is not screaming. It is evolving. Traditionally, love is a state of emotion. You either love something or you do not. But native speakers have begun using the progressive form to intensify the moment. When you say, I'm loving this, you are signaling that the satisfaction is happening right now, in this specific instance, and it might be temporary.
It's the difference between I love my car and I'm loving this drive. One is a fact. The other is a vibe.
Consequently, for the intermediate learner, the danger is overapplication. If you say, I am knowing the truth, you are not being modern. You are simply incorrect.
Yeah, don't do that. You'll sound like you've got a bug in your system. We need to know which verbs are glued to the simple form and which ones are allowed to flex.
And that is exactly what we will break down in our core lesson. We will look at the dual nature verbs, the ones that change, meaning the moment you add that ing.
I need a coffee before we tackle the dual nature stuff. Maria, you want your usual precise and structural tea?
I believe sophisticated in Polish is the term Hugo. We'll be right back. Before we go, here is your text message summary for this segment.
TLDR. Stative verbs are usually frozen and don't use ing. Only use ing with them if you're emphasizing a temporary feeling, like, I'm loving this pizza, but never, I'm knowing this rule. Done. And we are back. If you're just joining us, we're breaking through that intermediate plateau. You know that feeling where you've got the grammar down, but you still feel like you're reading from a manual while everyone else is just talking.
Precisely, Hugo. We are moving from the textbook truths to real-world fluency. In segment 1, we established that frozen verbs, or what we technically call stative verbs, are generally incompatible with the ing form. However, to reach an advanced level, you must understand the dual nature verbs. These are the linguistic chameleons that change their entire meaning depending on the tense you choose.
I love that. Linguistic chameleons. Here's the thing. Some verbs are like your phone apps. Sometimes they're just sitting there, taking up space. That's the frozen state. But other times, they're running in the background, doing work. That's the action. If you use the wrong tense, you're basically telling the person you're talking to that your app is crashed.
A modern analogy, Hugo. Let's look at our first, and perhaps most common, chameleon, the verb think. When used to express an opinion or a belief, it is a stative verb. Consequently, it must remain in the simple present. For instance, I think this plan is excellent.
Translate time. When Maria says stative, think opinion. It's your internal GPS. It's set. You don't say, I am thinking this plan is great, because an opinion isn't a physical action you're doing with your hands. It just is.
Correct. However, if think refers to a mental process, an active deliberation occurring in your mind right now, it becomes a dynamic verb. In this context, you must use the progressive form. I am thinking about moving to London.
See the difference? I think London is expensive. I am thinking about moving to London. If you say, I think about moving, it sounds like a general habit, not a specific plan you're working on right now.
Excellent distinction. Now, let us move to a verb that causes significant grammar anxiety. Have. This is a primary indicator of the intermediate plateau. When have indicates possession, it is strictly stative. I have a car. She has 2 brothers.
But Maria, I hear people say I'm having all the time at brunch. Are they all just breaking the rules for the sake of the eggs Benedict?
Not at all, Hugo. That is the dual nature at work. When have is part of an expression describing an experience or an action, like eating, drinking, or hosting, it becomes dynamic. You are not possessing the breakfast. You are experiencing the act of eating it. Therefore, I am having breakfast is perfectly valid.
Bingo. Think of it this way. Possession is like a background app. It's just there. You don't need to check it. But having an experience is the app you're actively using. I have a car. I'm having a rough day. If you say I am having a car, people will think the car is currently being delivered to your stomach for lunch.
A vivid, if slightly terrifying, image, Hugo. Let's look at C. This is particularly nuanced. If you are using your physical sense of sight or your mental capacity for understanding, it is stative. I see the mountains, or I see what you mean.
I see what you mean is like the light bulb moment. It's a state of being enlightened. But what about when I've got a date tonight, Maria? I don't say I see a girl at 8 p.m.
Precisely. When see means to meet or to have a relationship with, it functions as a dynamic verb. I am seeing a specialist for my back pain, or they have been seeing each other for 6 months. In these instances, the verb describes a series of active events.
It's the calendar rule. If you can put it on your Google Calendar as an appointment, you can probably use ing. Seeing a doctor? Appointment. Seeing a movie? Action. Seeing the truth? That's just your brain being smart. Keep it simple.
I appreciate the calendar rule simplification. Now, we must address the most fundamental verb of all, be. For beginners, be is the ultimate stative verb. He is kind. She is intelligent. It describes a permanent character trait.
But here's where the stuck intermediate gets confused. Sometimes people say, you're being so annoying. Is that just bad grammar? Or is there a secret level to the game?
It is a very specific secret level, Hugo. When we use be in the progressive form, he is being annoying. We are describing a temporary behavior, not a permanent personality trait.
This is a huge one for sounding natural. If I say Maria is intellectual, I'm talking about who she is at her core. But if I say Maria is being intellectual, it sounds like she's just acting that way for a minute to impress someone at a party. It's temporary behavior. It's a vibe, not a fact.
Exactly. And we cannot ignore the senses, taste and smell. If the soup possesses a certain quality, it is stative. The soup tastes delicious. But if the chef is performing the action of testing the soup, it is dynamic. The chef is tasting the soup.
It's the nose rule. If the smell is just floating in the air, it's a state. The room smells like coffee. If you are actively putting your nose to a flower, you're doing work. I'm smelling the roses.
Now, why does this matter for our stuck intermediates? Because at the B2 level, your goal is no longer just to be understood. Your goal is to be precise. Using the stative form when you mean the dynamic form makes you sound robotic. It prevents you from expressing the temporality of your life.
Don't let grammar anxiety freeze your speech. Use Maria's rules to build the house, but use my vibe checks to actually live in it.
Well said. Before we move to our real-world application, let's simplify this entire deep dive into something you can take with you.
You know what time it is. Here is your Segment 2 text message summary. TLDR. Some verbs have two modes. If it's an opinion or possession, keep it simple. If it's a mental process or an activity, add the ing. Think. Frozen photo versus live video. Done.
We have covered the logic. Now, it is time for the test.
I'm ready if you are. Let's see if our friends at home can spot the chameleons in the wild. Welcome back to the final stretch, family. If you've stuck with us through the why and the how, you're already halfway to beating that intermediate plateau. Now it's time for the do.
Precisely. Information without application is merely data. To truly transform your English from a textbook exercise into a living tool, you must be able to navigate the nuances of these verbs in high-stakes environments.
Exactly. It's like practicing your swing in a batting cage. It feels easy when the machine is just tossing the ball at the same speed. But when you get into a real game, a job interview, a first date, a high-level meeting, that's when the grammar anxiety starts to sweat.
Therefore, we have designed a real-world test. Hugo is going to play the role of a candidate in a networking scenario at a tech conference. I will play the role of a senior project manager. Hugo, are you ready to demonstrate both the safe structure and the natural flow?
I was born ready, Maria. But remember, I'm the communication coach, so I'm going to focus on the vibe. You just make sure I don't break any of your precious rules.
I shall be watching and grading very closely. Scenario start. It is a pleasure to meet you, Hugo. I have heard great things about your work with the startup in Berlin.
Thanks, Maria. I'm really glad to be here. Honestly, I'm loving this conference so far. The energy is just different this year.
Stop. Hugo, you used a stative progressive right out of the gate. I am loving this conference. Explain yourself.
Caught me! But here's the thing, Maria. If I just said, I love this conference, I sound like I'm reading a review from a brochure. By saying, I'm loving it, I'm telling you that right now, in this specific moment, I'm having a blast. It's an involved sensation. It shows I'm present.
Correct. While a textbook might mark that as an error, in a social networking context, it creates a connection. It is a dynamic use of an emotional state. However, do not try that on your IELTS exam. Proceed. I see. And what are your thoughts on the new AI integration we discussed?
Well, I think it's a game changer. But lately, I've been thinking about how it might affect our data privacy rules. We have to be careful.
Excellent. Notice the dual use of the verb think. Hugo, why did you switch forms?
Easy. The first one, I think it's a game changer, is my opinion. It's a frozen photo of my belief. But the second one, I've been thinking about the privacy rules, is a live video of my brain doing work. I'm considering it. I'm weighing the options.
Precisely. You successfully moved from a state of belief to an active mental process. This is the hallmark of an advanced speaker. Now, let's test the verb have. We are looking for someone who has a strong grasp of Python. Do you have experience with that?
I have 5 years of experience with Python, and actually, I'm having a meeting with a dev team later today to discuss a new script I wrote.
Flawless. Hugo used I have for possession of a skill, stative. Then he used I'm having a meeting for a scheduled experience, dynamic.
See? It's not about memorizing a list of illegal words. It's about knowing if the word is acting like a background app or a foreground action. If I said I'm having 5 years of experience, Maria would think I'm currently eating my resume for lunch.
Indeed. One final check, Hugo. Let's look at the music of the sentence, the intonation. If you want to sound authoritative yet approachable, where does your voice go?
Don't overthink it, friends. Think of your voice like it's walking up and down stairs. When I'm stating a fact, my voice goes down at the end. I have 5 years of experience. But if I'm checking in with you to see if we're on the same page, I might go up. Does that make sense?
That music is what prevents the robotic tone of the intermediate plateau. It is the difference between a student reciting a poem and a professional sharing a vision.
Here's the deeper dive secret, guys. The reason you feel stuck is that you're playing it too safe. You're so worried about being wrong that you forget to be real.
But real does not mean messy. You must have the foundation. Think of it like a house. The grammar, the stative rules, the tense consistency, that is the foundation and the walls. That is what keeps the roof from falling on your head.
And the flow, the slang, the I'm loving it vibes, that's the paint, the furniture, and the music playing in the living room. Nobody wants to live in a house that's just concrete walls, Maria.
I suppose a few decorations wouldn't hurt, Hugo.
We've covered a lot today. We looked at why the B1 to B2 jump feels like climbing a mountain. We broke down the frozen versus moving verbs, and we saw how the chameleons change their skin in the real world.
Remember, mistakes are not failures. They are data. If you find yourself saying, I am knowing, simply pause, adjust, and continue. The goal is progress, not perfection.
And don't forget the most important rule. English is a tool for connection. If you're connecting, you're winning.
We are so proud of the work you are doing. Keep pushing, keep practicing, and we will be here to guide you every step of the way.
Before we go, let's hit that final text message summary for the whole episode. TLDR. To break the intermediate plateau, stop treating English like a math problem. Use simple tenses for permanent facts or opinions, and continuous tenses for temporary actions or experiences. Be a linguistic chameleon, and you'll sound like a pro. Done.
Well said, Hugo.
See you in the next deep dive.
Until next time, happy learning.